Interviews can be daunting, particularly when it's for a role we really want. This presentation will give you some key tips to ensure that you make the best possible first impression. You'll also be sent an interview checklist to complete, and we'll contact you with the specific details of the interview you're going to be attending separately. Before we look at what to get right, let's focus on the kinds of things that people often get wrong. Firstly, it's often the case that candidates get the basics wrong. Getting there too late or too early, getting lost en route, wearing the wrong clothes. Basic errors but often repeated. Secondly, a lack of research is really telling at interview stage. When we're nervous anyway, getting caught out with questions we should know the answer to can be soul destroying. You don't want to end up bluffing and blagging at your interview. Perhaps the most frustrating mistake is a failure to communicate our personality. Nerves do different things to different people and can lead to us becoming reticent and clamming up. Be yourself at interview. If you try too hard to be someone you're not, even if you get the job, it probably won't work out. Being yourself is the reason you don't get the job, then the decision is probably the right one for both parties. Whatever happens, try and ensure you leave the interview room having got your personality across. Now remember, these are common, predictable mistakes, so try and ensure that you don't repeat them. A recruitment business will typically use a two-stage interview process. The first stage is often relatively informal. It may even be the case that it's done on the telephone. This is because using the phone well is key in recruitment, so they want to hear how you come across. Whether on the phone or face-to-face, a potential employer will want to establish three key things. They want to know about your background, where you've worked, what you've studied, and how this is relevant to a recruitment role. They also want to know about you as an individual. What are your interests and hobbies, your personal circumstances? Don't be defensive here, they want to know whether you're going to be the right cultural fit for their environment. They'll also want to know what motivates you. This can be quite complex as they'll want to know what motivates you from a few different perspectives. They'll obviously want to know what attracts you to recruitment. Be honest and genuine, but make sure that you can back up any responses. For instance, interviewees commonly claim to be money motivated, but if you can't explain what you want the money for, it'll look fake. Equally, if the fast-paced, targeted environment appeals to you, be prepared to explain exactly why that is the case. Secondly, they'll want to know why you want to work in their sector. So, for instance, if you're interviewing for a retail recruiter, what is it about retail that interests you? Finally, they'll want to know why you want to work for their particular business. This can be a great opportunity for you to show off some research. Maybe you can refer to information you've seen on their website or in the interviewer's LinkedIn profile. Bear in mind that you'll often be interviewed by the founder or owner of the business, and a little bit of well-placed flattery about their organisation can go a long way. Remember, we're going to give you more details on the specific format, structure and process for your interview separately. We want to avoid some of the basic mistakes we mentioned earlier. So in terms of timing, aim to ring the buzzer 5 to 10 minutes before your interview, no later, but certainly no earlier. Getting there 30 minutes beforehand doesn't make you look keen. It can really irritate the interviewer who probably has a busy day lined up. It'll probably help to arrive on site about 30 minutes beforehand, but don't buzz in. Check out where the entrance is and then go for a coffee nearby. This will help avoid any last minute nerves caused by dashing around trying to find a company at the last minute. Make sure you're properly dressed. Smart business dress is almost always appropriate for an interview with a recruitment firm. Interviewers want to determine whether you're going to represent their business professionally in front of their clients and candidates. So check your appearance at the last minute, particularly if you've had to travel any distance or might have spilt that coffee down your shirt. Finally, make sure you know where you're going and how you're going to get there. Street View on Google Maps can be invaluable to familiarise yourself with office locations, but if possible, try and visit the location a day or so before the interview, just so you know exactly where you're going and how long it'll take you. Be sure to check traffic and relevant transport news on the day of your interview too. You want to ensure you feel suitably confident prior to interview, and the best way to build confidence is to make sure you know your stuff. So research is key. Make sure you know the company's website inside out. Look at the kind of jobs they work on. There may even be a Meet the Team section so you can check out who you're going to be meeting with. Don't assume the company website will be enough though, it won't. Look for links to any relevant trade sites and associations. Research some of their competitors. You're unlikely to be quizzed heavily on any of this, but if you know it, you'll feel more confident and have a chance of dropping in some better quality information and questions during your interview. Also, make sure you keep on top of the media in the days before your interview. Read a good quality newspaper and watch or listen to news programmes. It's not uncommon for interviewers to reference current affairs to check you know what's going on in the world, so don't get caught out in that respect. Think about some of the questions you're likely to be asked and make sure you're prepared for them. Many questions are predictable, so for instance, make sure you've worked out elements like your motivations and make sure you know your CV. The CV will be the key document that drives the interview, so be self-critical. Maybe ask a friend or family member to go through your CV with a critical eye and identify any potential concerns or tough questions that they may ask. It's just as important that you think about some questions that you can ask them as well. If you think about it, this can be a great opportunity for you to demonstrate your research, so make your questions specific, tailored and situational. For example, asking what are your plans for the future is just too generic and lazy a question. Far better to ask, I've seen from your website that you're planning on entering new territories over the next 12 months. Can you tell me a little more about this and what impact this move would have on my role, as this demonstrates some interest and research? Finally, make sure your questions aren't too self-serving. How many days holiday do I get is not a great question to ask at interview. Finally, think about how to sell yourself effectively. This is vital for two key reasons. Firstly, to demonstrate why you'll be great at the job, and secondly, because recruitment is essentially a sales role, they'll be looking for some sales ability at this stage. If you can't sell yourself, they won't back you to sell effectively for them. So get in the habit of turning features into benefits. Don't just list what's on your CV. These are often just features that describe you. Think instead about how these will be of benefit and of interest to the interviewer. For instance, mentioning sales experience is just a feature. Telling the interviewer that this sales experience will benefit them, as you'll be able to sell more quickly and effectively and require less support from them, is where they'll start to recognise how that feature might become beneficial to them. You can also sell yourself with case studies, examples from your past that demonstrate certain skills, traits or behaviours. Prepare some of these. You're likely to be asked about them, but even if you're not, you'll have plenty of opportunity to drop them into conversation. For example, rather than just claiming to be a great team player, give the interviewer some evidence. Maybe you've played team sports or completed a big team project at work. Try and prepare case studies for any competencies or skills that are likely to be relevant. You'll also need to deal with objections or concerns. Some of these will be thrown at you because the interviewer will have genuine concerns about your ability to do the job, and some will be used to see what your objection handling skills are like. So again, work out predictable objections. If you got a 2-2 at university, they'll want to know why you didn't get a 2-1. If you got a 2-1, they'll want to know why you didn't get a first. And remember that nothing is ever good enough. If you got a first, they'll want to know whether you lived a little whilst at university or were just the whole swat. Finally, make sure you close the interview well. Last impressions can be just as important as first impressions, so follow these 3 tips. Firstly, thank them for their time. It doesn't have to be gushing, just be polite. Secondly, tell them you're still interested in the role even if you're not 100% sure. If they see any uncertainty here, they're highly unlikely to progress you. Thirdly, ask a good closing question like, when can I expect to hear back from you, or what is the next stage in the process? These are good, professional, inoffensive questions that signal the end of the interview. Finally, good luck with your interview. Complete the interview checklist that we've emailed you, and please call us with any last-minute questions or queries. If we've not done so already, we'll be in touch shortly with some specific information on your interview, so best of luck, and do remember to call us as soon as the interview is over.